Hello, students. This is Professor Patti, and I'm coming to you live recorded on midterm week. We've got a few things I'd like to review just before you turn in. I know we already have midterm instruction videos. It can be done individually. It can be done as a group. I had a video that we uploaded that had some issues. So we're just going to go ahead and start from the top and re-record because I'd like you guys to feel really confident about this. So starting out, we have a special shout out to Walton Retirement Home. It's one of the places where I contract with as a therapy site, and they just happen to have this parade float set up, and I just happen to be dressed exactly like Peppermint Patty. The Walton Retirement Home just won first place in their small Ohio town. The Barnesville Pumpkin Festival is Ohio's largest small town festival. And they won first place, and it was a tight competition, and they were very excited about it. And all the residents who lived there were really thrilled, as was the caretaker and his wife, who did so much of the designs. So good people, good times. We're going right into Blackboard, and I've entered student preview mode. So this should be what it looks like for you. This week in our course content, I've started copying things a little bit differently. You'll see Module 7 just closed. So I like to keep that open an extra 24 hours. A lot of times things that are due at 11:59 p.m. It's so much easier if you are turning it in at 12:15 a.m. for me to just keep it open until the next day. But we are here in Module 8, which is the midterm. So we have some activities, or we have some links in our folder here today. We're going to be going up, including, hey, about the Barnesville Pumpkin Festival. What we love in social work is supporting communities and supporting events that give back to our communities. Oh, I did not need to make that go away. Can we talk about Apple products and just how much I love that you never know where things are going to go or what is going to happen next. Oh, let's try to go back to our activity stream, shall we? I really don't know where that went on. Oh, we're back in student preview mode. All right, so we're going to go back to our course content. That was fun. I really wish that would have opened in a new window. The Walton Home is a separate link in there. We don't really need to look at one. This week brought to you by Ohio Voting. This is a great time if you live in Ohio. It's a great time. See, it just opened in the same window. That was not that dope. Activity stream, because I like to have it open. Before I go back to our voter search, so please encourage your patients to be checking for voter registration. If you're like me and you live in the state of Ohio, maybe you're also getting 4 texts every single day updating you on urgent campaign needs. Well, those, my friend, are advertisements, and they're asking for your money. We're talking about social work ethics, values, and engagement. And we know that voting is a human right, and that our patients often don't even know they have this human right. So in the state of Ohio, state by state, we just get to decide who gets to vote here, right? It's a whole thing. We have states' rights in this country. And in the state of Ohio, if you are not currently serving a sentence for a felony conviction, you can vote in every election. So we want to make sure everyone is registered to vote. So there's people in Ohio who specifically go to the jails to register people who are currently serving time for civil violations and municipal violations and misdemeanor violations, because even people who have past felonies can vote. But you know who else can vote? Indigent people, people who don't have an address, people who are homeless, people who have a state ID. So these are all things we can do without violating. If you're part of a nonprofit organization, which often social workers and human service workers are, we have and we have a lot of direction. Don't influence people's votes, which is so valid and so very legal. And we definitely want to respect our ethical obligations not to influence votes. But we want to make sure that our patients have their voice, especially patients whose voices are systematically and intentionally, by the design of voting laws, excluded. So if you are helping patients with resources, make sure to direct them to a .gov resource, because we know then that it is verified as being federally linked. And we've had some great resources on campus here at Cleveland State with computer science to talk with us about the federal .gov movement and fellowships available to computer science folks in that movement. Course content, blazing ahead. We're looking at modulate and midterm. I really love this as a group project. I really love this as a live class. I really, really love all the conversations. So what happens in this course is the beginning, we get very overwhelmed with the amount of information, the amount of logins, the amount of just finding things. That's the beginning of an online semester. Get all the Zazoots together, right? And then once we get into the textbook, we tend to really like this textbook as social workers. Most of my students and peers do. And so then it's very quiet for me as a professor, right? And then we come in with the midterm. Well, when we're teaching it live, we're having great conversations about these chapters, and we have really lovely exercises in the book. Now, to try not to confuse you guys with what you need to do or not to do, I was trying not to open too many more of those case studies. But once we hit the midterm and everyone is turned in, I'm actually going to open the activity so you can play around, because I think they're great vignettes. They're really wonderful videos. There's a lot of legal, ethical, and just realism problems with filming live patients. And in social work, we're so concerned with really great treatment for patients that we do not focus on that in our clinical training, unlike other mental health focused degrees. We are a person-centered degree, right? We are a community-centered degree, and we are a system-centered degree. So we're not really observing or having ourselves observed at the same rates of like being filmed with patients. So this textbook has so many more options. So once we hit this Friday night, I'm just going to open up all the assignments and let you guys know what the scores are so far. In lieu of all that, as an online course, I have actually hosted a live midterm where like 20 people show up and we just kind of spitball and talk through it. But scheduling it is against an online class. And like invariably, there's people who can come and can't, and watching it is not the same, and everyone just does not get the same instruction. So in the interest of equity, it really doesn't quite work as well. You may use resources available to you. And as a community social worker, we definitely want to know what services are available for other people who want to organize study groups, skill groups, affinity groups, intersectionality groups, groups that create a sense of attachment, connection, purpose. This is the purpose of festivals. This is the purpose of holidays. This is the purpose of town halls, which is in the scope of your practice as an advanced generalist social worker, which you will be when you graduate this program, whether or not you focus on it in your class, because it's a generalist degree. So I'd love for you to reserve a group room at Cleveland State University at your alma mater, because guess what? They've got them. They're free. I was not phenomenal at this. I really loved, there's maps in here. There's about the library information. I hope that you go to the Michael Schwartz Library. It's in Rhodes Tower, floor 1. There are group project rooms that you can call the library and research help desk and say, can I reserve a room for us to do this together? On the second floor, there's silent study corrals, which I loved. It's a little cocoon of nothing, right? If you have Tibetan flute music, put it in earbuds because it's totally silent like that. The other place, other of my classmates through MSW were routinely meeting up and studying on upper floors in the library. I don't know those as well, but I certainly hope you know that the social work department is on the 14th floor. I've walked through and not run into anyone. So I wouldn't blame you if you weren't just perusing on your coffee hour. Okay, the Cuyahoga County Library free room rental. Also, everyone in the state of Ohio can get a library card to any city or county in the state of Ohio. And Most residents in Ohio can get a community Cleveland State University library card, and you can get limited cards at other universities as well. So meeting spaces, including rather large ones, are free. So for someone like me, that means I can have a town hall. That means I have had strategic planning, board member meetings, fund development committee meetings. You could have a fundraiser in a library. You're going to be limited on time, so I would not recommend it. However, you can have for-profit, nonprofit therapy. In the trauma adapted family connections therapy model, which I trained with University of Maryland social work school on, they strongly encouraged in-home, in-community family therapy in settings that the families could access. So we spent a lot of time in libraries and community rec centers learning about these rules, including if you're in the Cleveland area, you do not have to have a City of Cleveland address to go to the rec centers. Which seems like if I'm living in Brunswick, why would I want to go to a Cleveland Rec Center? Well, you're in Medina County, friend. In Cuyahoga County, if you're in Strongsville, maybe your child wants to go to Gunning for swim lessons for free. Or maybe your child wants to go to Halloran to do outdoor ice skating lessons for free. Or hockey for free. There's all kinds of programs that are available, and you don't even have to pretend to have a Cleveland address. It's just available to you. So we want to help our patients understand there are limited resources, but let's use the resources that we have. And as students, let's use the resources you are paying for. So the midterm review, our case study analysis. Is on the syllabus as well. Provide an overview of the case study. So it's 1, 4, 7. I don't really understand the numbering here. I deeply apologize for the Roman numeraling there. We'll blame that on the course copy. Here's the more detailed outline. Okay. This in red, you can just pull this up and edit it and save it as your own. That is totally fine with me, okay? I am, as I said before in my little mini video, I'm not looking for a thesis. I'm going to pull and show you what I showed you before, and I'm not going to change the size of it, buddy. I'm not going to show you what's out of the corner. But this is the length of response, and you do not need to keep it in red. I don't love that. I learned to write. I learned to type on a typewriter, my friends, like a real one with the backspace and whiteout and stuff. Okay, so this drives me buzzing. So I don't want you to really do that. I don't want you to write entirely too much. So we have 2 options here. We have 2 dearly typed out. And what I'd like you individually or as a group to do is decide if you are going to work on Teresa or you're going to work on Joseph, under the table or strength on fire. I think this is very frustrating. It doesn't say what it's called at the top. You do not need to turn this in as a part of it. And I want you to recognize this is where people get tripped up and have a lot of questions about how am I supposed to do it. Here, I'm sorry, this is so many windows. If this is visually upsetting for you, I'm just gonna maximize it. And then we're just gonna deal with wherever that stuff went in a minute, okay? This is the same, this is like a pretend example. I did not provide this. I don't love it, right? But the case of Susie Q, research-informed practice. This is a lot to ask of you. Why research-informed practice is vital in what you would do on this case. discussion of micro implications, discussion of meso implications, discussion of detail, detail, detail. This does not give me personally a lot of direction on what is actually explained. Okay, engagement, detail the engagement? No. Engagement, detail what you're doing at this phase of the intervention. Okay. References, I would like this to be light. Okay, this is not a research paper. This is not a thesis. I cannot state this enough because there's so many issues here. And the reality of being a social worker is, I'm just going to close that and pray. Hey, it happened. If you referred either one of these, if you were referred either one of these students, and both of these are students, and you have a social worker role in an agency both times for either the parent or the child or the family or whatever, you're not going to provide interventions to every single person at the same time. Do you realize how closely every family would close the door on you? So you will have your entire MSW program to explain the perfect theoretical application. But CSU has a bunch of different professors and a bunch of different applications of material. And this professor has been a direct service professor for 25 years. So I would like you to really think, if you're on an interdisciplinary team, what will you be working on? And we've talked about the engagement, or we've talked about the intervention of motivational interviewing. Now, I'm not kidding when I say I have patients who I use motivational interviewing with, and we're in engagement for 3 years, and they don't know it. You know, they think that they're getting therapy, but what I'm doing is softly, gently exposing basic needs interventions to them while they get used to a social worker not lying to them and not working against them and not being subversive. So there's so much trauma-informed readiness to do with both of these cases that if you tell me when you fill out these that you are going to do tons and tons of interventions, I have questions about your skill level. You know, so if I'm thinking about it like I'm mentoring you for your internship, and you are all at a skill level as MSW students who are starting your first case. If this is your first case, I want to hear, what are the questions you're asking, or what are the things that you're wondering about for Joseph, this 8-year-old boy, or for Teresa, this 33-year-old woman? What are you wondering about on the micro level for that patient, right? So each of these people have families. And I consider myself a family therapist because whether people come to me because they have very specific acute individual trauma or dysthymia or gender dysphoria or gender identity crisis, which are very different things, everybody talks to me about their homeowners association and their mom in their sleep. You know, like we're all human creatures. So when we're talking about micro, you're talking about Joseph and his individual internal understanding of what's happening around him, right? That's what I would like you to hear. And I would like you to explain it like Joseph's family is there and is at this presentation, right? And the same thing with Teresa. When we talk about cultural humility, I want you to think about patients pulling these records in 15 years as part of a, HIPAA lawsuit or whatever, and paging through them. I do have a patient who's suing for like exposure to a chemical while working. And they were like, are they really depressed? And I had to pull every single note, right? So what is Teresa, this patient who's been working in a hazmat, non-OSHA certified situation, going to think about my micro assessment of her when she hears what I think of her understanding of the situation? And that's primary, because your point of contact and your intervention with this family is essentially reliant upon them opening the door when you knock. So When we talk about legislative and policy requirements relevant to the client situation, which ones do they know about on the macro or societal level? Like Teresa is going to know about the policy restrictions on her food stamps. She's going to know what she can spend them on or not, right? She's going to know how many months in the state of Ohio she can receive TANF and what happens if their child is on a disability, won't she, right? What are the policies that they know of? Because I have to tell you, I can talk for days and days and days, and probably you guys can too after your policy class. But we're not trying to recreate your policy class in this paper, okay? So for this midterm, I want you to step into as if you are completing a case study for either agency. And if you're ever somebody who has received his case study, think about how realistic it would be for you to receive that one that I showed you up on the screen, right? Couple sentences for each one. We want to keep it probably in a present tense verbally, but I'm looking to see, is it something that makes sense? Do I feel like you know these patients? I went through all my windows and closed them, so I feel like that's it for now. I will be putting in an announcement on, I don't know how to look at a calendar. So our midterm is due next Friday. Should have a due date on here, right? Friday, October 18th. So Friday, October 18th, midterms will be due. We already have all of our chapter work in. So on the 19th, I will be posting in our announcements section right at the top, which I will also email to you. At the bottom, it says, would you like this to be sent out immediately? Yes, I will say this is how many points you should have in Cengage to have an A. And then I will have it according to the syllabus cut points. I know I can find it. See? No, I was just kidding. It's not there. What is an A in an honors class? Here we go. So I will tell you what a 93% to 100 is, 90, 87, 83, 80, and 70%. And if you are getting a C or an F, I will email you, right? And I'll probably put it in Starfish and be like, hey, let's talk about a plan to get back together. And that is not a ding on your MSW record. I want to let you know. That is a ding to see if there are financial resources available for you to study or to get a new whatever backup battery or whatever it is that you need, because I can't even imagine what kind of issues you might run into that make it harder for you to accomplish graduate school. But I do know that graduate school is something that I think less than 3% of the population goes through. My good friend at Case, Maggie Bachman, who's always trying to talk me into getting a PhD, told me that only 3% of people in the US get a master's degree, and only 1% go on to attempt the PhD. So I don't know if that's real or not, but she does teach at Case, so it's probably true. So that means that even attempting, you're pretty high up there, and you know that the entire point of this degree is to understand how to triage too much to do and not enough time. So I hope in all of that, you are also resting and learning and growing. And I hope that your semester goes really awesome from midterm to final. See you soon.